It happened on a hot Chicago afternoon, the kind where the air sticks to your lungs and the sidewalk shimmers like a mirage. And I went down hard on Bayview suit, fresh pressed tie pulled loose, and none of that mattered because my throat started closing, and a red rash shot up my neck like a fire alarm. And the crowd, God help me, the crowd stepped back and lifted their phones like I was a movie scene instead of a man who could not breathe. Someone muttered, "Don't touch him, might be contagious." A guy in a cap snorted, "Probably drunk, serves him right." And I remember thinking, so this is how it ends, flat on the cement with strangers judging my obituary before I finished the sentence. And then a small voice cut through all of it, bright and steady like a rope thrown across water. "He can't breathe. Somebody please." A little hand slid into mine, not shaking, just there, solid. And a little water tipped to my lips, and she said what no adult said to me that day. "In and out, mister, we're doing this together." Counting soft like a metronome for lungs, 1, 2, in, out. And I hung on to that voice until the oxygen mask took over and the doors slammed. When I woke up to antiseptic air and a machine keeping time. David Harris, my right hand since my scrappy days, sat hunched in a chair like he'd been arguing with the sun, and he said what no headline wanted to say out loud. People watched, boss. They watched and filmed and backed away. Except one kid who knelt and held your hand till the siren showed up. That sentence went deeper than the IV. I'd built towers and brands and rooms where people stand when I walk in. You know what I mean. And it turns out none of that lifts a finger when you're face down on the asphalt. I told David find her, I don't care how. And 2 days later, I was on a narrow south side porch I'd never visited in my life, paint peeling a tricycle tipped in the yard, wind chime made of spoons, and when the door opened, I said it straight, no PR gloss. Your daughter saved my life. Angela Carter. Tough eyes, tired hands. Stared like the evening news had gotten lost and knocked, and a small face peeked from behind her hip. Pink ribbon lopsided stuffed bunny riding shotgun. "Hey, Anna," I said, crouching till my knees complained. "I'm Richard." And she looked up for her mom's nod like a pro, before she said hi back, and I gave her a small bracelet with her name engraved. Because gratitude sometimes wants something you can touch, and her fingers traced ANNA, and she whispered, "Wow," and Angela's shoulders softened, just enough for me to ask if I could take them to lunch. The elevator ride to the 58th felt like a spaceship to a new planet, and in the restaurant where the glass turns the city into a postcard. Anna pressed her nose to the window and said, we could count all the people while Angela sat straight with that protective stillness that says I've fought for this child in rooms much colder than yours. Too many forks hit the table, the oldest trick in the book, and Anna whispered which one is for bread, and I handed her the smallest and said the only rule that counts is enjoy it, and she giggled, and even Angela almost smiled, and we ate and I asked, and I listened. Because you don't show respect with speeches, you show it by shutting up. Favorite game, hopscotch. Favorite animal, cats, but the cute ones, not the scary ones. Dream doctor. So I can help people like I helped you. And I swear to you, I felt something shift under that chandelier like a floorboard I'd been standing on for years, finally creaked, honest. After lunch, I told David no press, no angle, just people, and when I invited Angela and Anna to see where I work, quiet evening candles jazz the parts of power that look human. We walked past looks I've seen my whole life but never felt on my skin quite like that, whispers stitched into smiles, and I said the line that had been reshaping me since the pavement. You belong anywhere kindness belongs, and Angela didn't buy it yet, but she didn't throw it away either. At the Lakeshore Gala, all crystal and clever laughter, the first snide shot came fast, a tuxedo with a smirk, saying Grayson's bringing the neighborhood tonight. Different name, same poison. And I crouched to Anna and said, "You made me proud." Then stood up and said, "For anyone who wanted to hear it, some people measure wealth in money. I measure it in who I stand beside." Yeah, that happened. Outside after the night flipped the switch again. The prickling skin, the squeezed throat, the panicked tilt. And I grabbed the rail, and Angela dropped her purse, and Anna got to me first, counting like a drum line in and out. "Don't you leave us. You promised to show me your office." And I came back on that promise like a lifeline, and the ambulance groaned up, and this time when they pulled our hands apart, I saw my reflection in her eyes. Not billionaire, not headline, just a man who needed help. And that is a mirror no boardroom ever held up to me. By morning, the phones burned. Investors, reporters, Charles Whitmore from the board, with his patient voice that always feels like velvet on a blade. And they all said the mature thing was distance and a statement, return to focus. And I said the thing I could live with gratitude does not come with an NDA. I stood behind a podium in my own building and said her name, Anna Carter. And what she did twice, and I said I owe her more than a fruit basket. I owe a city that watched to learn how to kneel, and I launched the Anna Carter Scholarship Fund, so kids with courage and need get a shot at healthcare and education without begging for it. And cameras flashed and someone shouted, "What about your stock?" And I said, "Kindness is value." And you could hear half the room roll their eyes and the other half exhale like they'd been waiting a decade for someone to say it out loud. That was the midpoint twist. Not the fund, not the speech, but the cost I said yes to because the board called me in and Whitmore tapped the folder like a judge taps a desk and said, "Suspend the theatrics or we suspend you." And I looked around at faces that had smiled at my holiday parties, and I asked which of you stepped forward when I was on the ground, and the silence told me the whole story. And I said, "If kindness looks like scandal to you, then the rot isn't in me, and when they voted to sideline me, I saved them the trouble and laid the keys on the table, head, high, lungs open." Here's what happens after the heroic music fades. Vans on Angela's block, neighbors with casseroles and opinions, school drop-off turning into a gauntlet of, "Are you the girl?" Grocery lanes where a stranger mutters, "Must be nice," under her breath. And we learn together how to keep a child, while the world points and debates. I brought dinners because food is a language. I brought a pink stethoscope with her name because dreams deserve props. And when Anna pressed it to my chest and said, "Breathe." Mr. Richard, I laughed for real, not the kind that moves stock, the kind that fixes a little piece of you. And after she slept, Angela stood in the doorway and asked the question. People with good instincts ask, "Why are you doing this? What happens when your world turns?" And I told her the truth. I wish I'd learned younger. I built tall and forgot to build close. I don't want to forget again. And she held my eyes long enough to measure if that holds up in rain. It rained. Headlines spun. Whitmore played statesman. The market did its zigzags, and the fellowship grew anyway. Nurses stocking inhalers in schools, kids with thick files getting clean slates. And on Saturdays, I sit on a park bench while Anna runs until her laughter trips. And sometimes I think about the number of rooms I used to control with a "nya," and then she looks back to make sure I'm watching, and the math solves itself. Did I win? Depends on the scoreboard you pick. But here's the ending. I can live with, I lost a title and kept the part of me a 7-year-old believed in. I watched a mother who has fought a lifetime of side eyes start to trust that standing in the light doesn't mean surrender. And I learned that legacies aren't carved into stone, they're braided into memories, where someone says when the crowd froze, I didn't. Now you tell me, was I right to put a child's courage above a board's comfort? Or was I reckless with a company thousands depend on? Should leaders keep their heads down And guard the number, or is there a line where silence turns into a slow betrayal? You can't wash off. Drop your take in the comments. Push back if you need to tell me when you knelt while the phones were out, or when you wish you had. Tell me the moment a stranger surprised you, or you surprised yourself. And if one day you're on a sidewalk and somebody can't breathe, and the crowd lifts their screens, remember a girl named Anna and a promise that pulled a man back from the edge. Kneel count. Hold a hand, then come back here and tell us what happened.